If you're someone who believes aging means slowing down, lowering the bar, or quietly accepting limits, this episode is for you.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion, my words got power, my thoughts have action, motivation, stay gracious, that's greatness, be audacious, motivation, be audacious, innovation, be audacious, inspiration, be bold, motivation, be
audacious. My understanding is, as life goes on, we're supposed to be slowing down a bit, and it seems like you're getting faster. I mean, you're setting cycling records in your 70s, man. Like that's not the norm there, Jeff.
Well, yeah, the norm is not that interesting to me. I have done 1-hour record attempts at the San Diego Velodrome. The hour attempt, the hour record, it's probably the hardest thing you can do in cycling. And one of the most iconic, right? It's been around since the 1800s. And so I set that record when I was 66 in my 5-year age group, 65 to 69. And then a buddy of mine broke it when I was 69. And I thought, well, that's cool. Let me go have a whack at getting it back. And I didn't quite beat him. But 4 years later, a few months before turning 70, I beat my record from 66.
Wow.
So that was a really, really successful day for me.
What if the story you've been told about age decline or what's realistic is completely wrong? What if your strongest, most audacious chapter is still ahead of you? Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where our goal is simple and it's to help you live your best, audacious life ever by challenging assumptions, redefining what's possible, and choosing purpose over comfort, no matter what stage you are in life. Today's guest is Jeff Seckendorf. He's a world record-holding cyclist, coach, and advocate who's redefining what it means to age powerfully. In his 70s, check this out, Jeff isn't slowing down. He's breaking cycling records, coaching professional level athletes, and helping people with Parkinson's disease reclaim strength, identity, and purpose through movement and mindset. This conversation is about far more than fitness. It's about pivoting instead of quitting, embracing the mindset of a professional athlete in life, and choosing to live fully right up to the moment that matters the most. So with all that said, let's get into it. Hey, Jeff, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. I appreciate you for taking the time to do this. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, Hadley, it's great to meet you. Great to hang out for a little while and tell some stories.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think for me, this is by far, I mean, it's a blessing, quite honestly, if I'm being honest with you, because it allows, so the way I think about it, here we are, Jeff, we're going to engage in conversation. Listeners have the opportunity to eavesdrop in what we're sharing and talking about, and they potentially could take what they hear us talking about, institute in their own lives, and, maybe put themselves on a better place or better trajectory, right? And so that's a really cool process to be a part of. And so that's why I want to thank you for helping me, fulfill my own personal mission, because I think, it's certainly touching people and impacting people. And so one of the things we talk about in this podcast often and always is, living that best audacious life. And we're, encouraging individuals to understand one. And the analogy that we kind of use is we talk about, life being a journey, if you will, on a pathway. And so, on that, there's our own set of obstacles, challenges, pitfalls, what have you, but there's also rewards too, right? And so it's not just all the bad stuff, there's good stuff, but oftentimes we've got to get through those periods of adversity, we've got to get through those challenges to kind of get to the other side, because that's where the greatness lies. And so, it's in that spirit in which we look to encourage individuals. You've got your own story and your own journey, which was filled with a couple of records as well too, so we'll certainly talk about that. So maybe as a starting point, Jeff, I'll invite you into the conversation, have you introduce yourself to our audience, talk about what you do and what's got you to the point that you're at now.
Yeah. Oh, well, first, it's so cool to be here. I love your show.
Thank you.
And so I am a bike racer, master's bike racer. I'm a coach, personal trainer, nutritional coach. I had a very long career in the film industry. And about 20 something years ago, I did a little direction change, left the film industry, opened a scuba certification and training agency,
Okay.
and ran that for a little under 20 years. And then recently exited that company that I owned and ran. And now I help the Parkinson's community, Parkinson's disease community in San Diego, and I ride my bike and I coach athletes and I coach people with Parkinson's. And yeah, I just try to make it endless fun. That's the cool part.
Nice, nice. And what sort of fuel all of that for you? Is it out of a like sort of personal connection, or just something you felt that you wanted to aid or help with, or where that come from for you?
The Parkinson's thing, you mean?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. So my wife is a clinician, a nurse practitioner, and her whole practice is Parkinson's. So for all these years, I've just met so many people with Parkinson's. And um, about 15 years ago, I was able to take my filmmaking skills and sort of help that community out. And it just grew from there. So that I don't have Parkinson's, but I am, grateful to have so many friends who do and to help them along, you know, what is a lifetime journey once you
Mm,
get diagnosed with this disease, from a standpoint of providing content, educational content, programming, but equally important, providing fitness coaching for people with Parkinson's because it's a crazy disease. And right now, the only known therapy that can slow its progression
mhm,
is exercise.
mm.
The medication, mollifies symptoms, but the only thing that'll slow it down right now, till some magic happens, is exercise. So, we take people, we put them in a training program, and we turn them into professional athletes.
I love it. I love
Yeah,
it. I love it. I
that's
love it.
cool.
It is a very, very cool thing, a cool process to be something to be a part of. So I
Yeah.
love that for you, the work and the clients that you work with. Now, I got to be clear here. I mean, my understanding is, as life goes on, we're supposed to be slowing down a bit, and it seems like you're getting faster. I mean, you're setting cycling records in your 70s, man. Like that's not the norm there, Jeff.
Well,
Talk
yeah,
about
the
that.
norm is not that interesting to me. I have done uh, 2 hour, 1 hour record attempts at the San Diego Velodrome. Um, the hour attempt, the hour record, it's probably the hardest thing you can do in cycling and one of the most iconic, right? It's been around since the 1800s. It's so simple. How far can you ride your bike on a track, a velodrome, in 1 hour? Seems simple, but
Okay,
it
yeah,
is the most complex things: science, engineering, aerodynamics, fitness, mental state, physiology. And I made up a word the other day called mentalology. It's like,
okay, that works.
um, and so I set that record when I was 66 in my 5 year age group, 65 to 69. And then a buddy of mine broke it when I was 69. And I thought, well, that's cool. Let me go have a whack at getting it back. And I didn't quite beat him. But 4 years later, a few months before turning 70, I beat my record from 66.
Wow,
So
wow.
that was a really, really successful day for me. And now I have another one coming up in about 2 months. And so the goal is to go faster still at 70 than I did at 69, and certainly than I did at 66. So, I
You're
mean,
flipping on its head there, Jeff. Like it's again, it's
why not? Right? Why not? I mean, that's all it's just why not?
right, right, right. And it's. I mean, even in keeping in the spirit with the podcast, I'll use the opportunity to do some branding here. Like, what's more audacious than that? Like who says something has to be a certain way? Why can't that be challenged? Why can't that go outside of the grain and break records? Like there's no rules that say you can't do that.
No, and I think as kids, when I was a kid, turning 40, that guy was old, you know, and grandparents, man, they were 1 foot in the grave no matter what. And now it's just, I heard a stat the other day that 10,000 people a day are turning 70 in the US. That's, it's the largest growing sector of our population, which, presents a whole bunch of other problems like how are we going to feed all these old people? But um, once we get that one sorted, um, I think we can look at this and say, well, I'm just not going to accept what the norm is. But neither do you or does anybody else.
Sure,
And
sure,
that's
sure.
that's kind of the point of all this bike stuff is to, it's a way to make a statement and say, look, okay, you're old, or okay, you have Parkinson's, or whatever. So what? You
Right.
know, just
Right.
that doesn't mean you have to stop.
Hmm. I'm curious, if you have a general philosophy on aging, what would that be? Many would think, as you get older, it's the end of the road, and clearly that's not the case for you. I'm just curious, do you have sort of general thoughts on what aging it means represents to you?
No. I really don't. It's a good question. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that. Um, because I don't really see it. I mean, I talked
Mm,
to somebody yesterday about a guy who's a very, very, well-known and experienced researcher in the world of Parkinson's, and he was saying, "Look, we're all mortal. We don't know anybody who's not mortal, which
right.
means at some point, this physical life will end. It's just the way we are. Whatever your beliefs are for after that are your beliefs for
Sure.
after that. But not relevant to this conversation. The physicality part
Yep.
will end. And we're all going to get something that causes that end, right? The big question is, how do you deal with that? How do you
Right.
deal with that knowledge that we're all going to get something? Now, I ride a bike 6 days a week. I have a, you know, even chance of getting hit by a bus. But,
Sure.
I could get anything. It's just you're going to draw a card and you're going to get something at some point. And I just think the idea is live as powerfully as you can up to
Okay.
that moment. And then, just make sure you don't have any regrets.
I love that. Live as powerfully as you can, and it's that in itself is a powerful statement.
Yeah, I don't say that lightly. I mean, this is
Nah,
not
I hear it.
not something I have written down on a post-it, right? This is just how I live.
Nah, I hear that loud and clear, loud and clear. So I'm curious then, um how has your age being this stage of your life helped you when it comes to these records that you've broken? Is it the experience, more knowledge, insight? What's been the difference maker?
That's another good question. I really think it's being able to pivot into a moment that allows for a modicum of success
Okay,
inside of goals. Sounds like a mouthful, but I believe that goals should be 50% believable, right? I think that that's a thing. So in that idea that you choose a goal and you can likely or not likely succeed at it, at some point you just have to say, okay, what are the ones I can do that maybe are a little more than 50%? And this is the thing on the bike, right? So had been training for 4 or 5 years
hmm,
to attack a national or an international hour record, similar to what I did on the outside track at San Diego, but maybe 4 kilometers or 5 kilometers farther, which is a big reach. And what's happening in the hour record, it goes in and out of fashion, and right now it's in fashion. So lots of professional cyclists who are aging up or super fit elite cyclists who are aging up are attacking the hour record, and it's getting longer and longer and longer. And it became it, I haven't tested to see if it's out of reach, but it was feeling out of reach. And
okay,
we haven't given that up at all. But in the meantime, I was looking at like, what can I do today that would give me a charge, get me fired up, and
gotcha.
say, okay, I, this thing may or may not happen, but what can I do? And then I discovered this organization called the World Ultra Cycling Association, and they are the national or the international governing body for long distance records on the bike. And I'm looking up, who's got the record on the track for like,
Right.
these long records, um, and I thought, wow, I could smash those, um, and I did. So I did. So I got a bike. I got a team together. We picked a date, and I went out and I rode 100 kilometers, then 100 miles, then 200 kilometers and 6 hours, all nested at the same, in the same event, and destroyed all four of those world records in
Hmm.
my new age group of 70 plus. And it was so satisfying to be able to just look at something, have a goal, science it up, figure it out, get the team together. We made it a fundraiser for the local Parkinson's Association and raised like over $15,000.
Right.
Um, so yeah, so it, kind of goes to purpose, and it goes to a pivot.
Hmm.
And, a lot of people who were involved in that, or who read about that, who knew about that effort. And this is kind of why I'm doing your show and other shows. It's really about, you can take something that seems impossible
Yep.
and have a whack at it. And maybe
Mm.
it's impossible, maybe it's not. Or you can take something you think is impossible and pivot it into something that is possible. These are all things that I think allow someone who's struggling with a neurological disease, like in this case, or, you know, the mental trials of aging up, saying, holy crap, regret this, I regret that, I
Right.
regret this, I regret that. Um, and I think it allows people to, at least in my universe, to say, okay, well, he's a bit of a maniac, but it's okay because he did something really powerful. I don't have to go set 4 world records, but maybe I can ramp up my daily walk and try a 5K.
Gotcha.
It's
Hmm.
within your scope, but it's also within your fun factor, and able to enjoy the process to get there and the training and all of that.
Very, very curious, Jeff. If there is there a particular mindset or ritual or way of practice of being that you've incorporated to help you kind of stay consistent and with throughout I think with all the training and the competition that you go through, is there one or two or three different things that you make part of who you are to help you continue forward?
Yeah, well, one of the things that we've talked about a lot is it's great not to have a good short-term memory because you're off doing intervals, in training. You've got a set of 10. You get to 6 and you can't remember 1 through 5. That is a
That's
big advantage to
yeah,
training on
yeah.
a bike.
I can imagine. Yeah.
So that's that's
I'm
one
good. I
part.
think I'm there then. I'm ready.
We're all of us getting there. Um, but it's just how your engine is built, or how your mental state is built. I happen to be a decent time trialist on a bike, right? Riding against the clock and
Mhm.
myself, as opposed to in a bike race where you can't control the race. You can't control anybody else. So, if the bike race goes in a way that it doesn't suit my physiology, or my,
Yep.
my new mental word, mentalology,
Mm.
uh, then you're just screwed. So I chose events that suit my ability to put my head down, go hard for long periods of time. And I also chose events that allow me to control the event more than 30 other people in a race. And and I think that that's an important piece, right? Because,
Yeah.
you don't want to just go beat your head against the wall trying to do something that is going to be endlessly unsuccessful, right? You're
Right.
not interested in coming in the bottom 2/3 of a race,
Hmm.
you know?
No, I get yeah, like yeah, it's you're going to race to win it, right? That's at the end of the day.
Or just at least do your own best, right?
Right.
So you
Yeah.
can go in and know that you're going to be in the bottom third, but if you do your best, well, then you win your ride. You do great. But um, there's process and there's outcome. And
Yeah.
process is the whole thing that's so important. And this is like the whole new buzzword,
Hmm.
do the process, don't worry about the outcome. But in reality, we all love an outcome. We
Absolutely. We want
all
that
love a
trophy, we want
win.
that ribbon, we want that title,
Just
right?
love that podium. So,
That's it. That's it.
so I think it's ingenuous to think that, well, I'll just train and I don't care what happens on race day. My thing is, I'm just going to train, and I absolutely care what happens on race day. Nobody is, you know, uh, inviting, y- you know, uh, second place to a big event. It just
Mm.
doesn't work in our culture that way. So if you want to make an impact, you have to make an impact, and you have to put yourself in a position to do it. And that's why I did this little pivot. And that's why I chased after, a goal that I was pretty sure was attainable, and is giving me a platform to talk about,
Got you.
pivoting, purpose, living strong as we age up, and
Yep.
all of that.
Curious about the work that you do with your clients and the coaching work that you do to support them. Look, clearly for you, age is just a number, but that's not a mindset that everyone, all people have. I'd imagine that maybe you're working with some people who are frustrated of their age, or that the age matters to them. Um, what kind of things do you sort of help with those, or maybe what kind of conversations, what kind of reframes that to help them through that maybe frustration, if you will. I know I'm being subjective when I say frustration, but but there very well could be that some that are struggling with that.
Yeah, it's actually not subjective. It's quite objective.
Okay.
Um, Back when COVID started, I got together with a friend of mine and we formed a company called Coach Me Strong. And
Okay.
this was a individualized coaching program specifically for people with Parkinson's. That was
Okay.
the demographic. We had other people come in with other challenges or aging or whatever, but basically it was a way to take people who were kicked out of their gyms because the gyms were closed and give them a training plan that they could stick to, have a coach with accountability, and so on. What we did was, whenever anybody would come in to interview to see if it was a good fit, we the conversation always went to, okay, you've got Parkinson's disease, or you've got whatever, or you're old, or
Hmm.
whatever your
Hmm.
your vision of
Put,
yourself
put it
is.
right on the table.
And it's like whatever your career was
Hmm.
up until today was your career. Today, when you decide that you're going to exercise for health or to keep a disease at bay or something, you are a professional athlete. Your
Hmm.
mindset now has to shift from, you know, I love to walk 20 minutes a day to I am a professional athlete. The difference between an amateur and a professional, of course, is amateur gets up, weather's crappy, it's raining, snowing, whatever, you know, not feeling it. You can sit on the couch and watch Gilligan's Island reruns all day and nobody cares. Professional athlete gets up, weather's crappy, not feeling it, whatever. You get on the bike, you put
You
on your
go.
running shoes, you get in the pool, and you just go because that's the deal. So the ability for somebody who is told by their clinician, I'm back on Parkinson's, that they have to exercise, it's the only thing that'll slow their progression, or aging, because we know that, you know, uh, hard training, resistance training, all of that is, becoming one of the keys to longevity.
Hmm.
The mindset has to shift to I'm a professional athlete now,
Mm.
right? And what we did in Coach Me Strong and what I do with the athletes and the non-athletes who I coach is make sure that they understand this mindset that training is no longer an option, that exercise is now training. It's not
Mm.
just exercise. If you want to go play pickleball, awesome, but let's put that on your calendar and make it part of your training.
Right. Right.
So that's the mindset that
It's
I'm
almost like
working
giving it
on.
purpose, right? Is that what you're doing by doing that?
It's giving it purpose, but it's also putting the necessity on the table.
Got you. Okay.
It's just saying you don't have an option. Well, you do have an option, right? You can let Parkinson's
Hmm.
advance faster. You can let aging, rear its ugly head faster.
Yes.
You can let osteoporosis advance faster. You know, you can let, memory loss, Alzheimer's, whatever, ever, what the aging population is facing. All of that slows down with good exercise. All of it. There's finally, good clinical evidence that this is a thing that actually works.
Mm.
But it's hard to take somebody off the couch and put them in a program and have them go from, 2 20-minute walks a week to, 6 days of structured training. So
Hmm.
your initial question is really smart. It's like, what's the mindset and how do you instill that in
Right.
someone?
Right.
And we instill it with this concept of you are now a professional athlete.
And what I like about that, what I really like about that actually is that that can help sustain that motivation to keep going, right? Like
It does.
that's the key. If your mindset is this is what I am, and you're not doing what I am, you're like, I got to do what I'm supposed to do to be what I am. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I had somebody join the coaching program as a client a few months ago and with Parkinson's. And her goal is a marathon in what's now a couple of months. So
Okay.
we've been working maybe 3 or 4 months, and she walks in and says, I want to run this marathon. It means there's a million personal reasons why she wants to do it. And uh, and we're putting her on a program, right? And she came in 50% believable goal. I look at it and say, you're pushing 60% believable goal, but we're doing it slowly, right?
Yes.
We're saying, okay, it's physical and it's mental. Physical is easy to work on, right? She just did a 5K really successfully. She's doing a 10K, I think tomorrow, right? This will be
Beautiful.
the longest run she's done in a long time. And we're looking at pacing strategies and nutrition and hydration and management and all of that. And I think that what I think we come out of this 10K weekend and we can say, all right, your marathon success rate just went from initially 50-50 to 60-40. I'll probably get it.
Okay.
Now you had a successful 10K, maybe we're 70-30. And
Gotcha.
these are the successes that help the mental part, because now all of a sudden you're seeing, oh man, I can come out the end of this thing and have this success that means so much to me. And how do I tell everybody about that and tell everybody that, look, in 6 months, I went from whatever to marathon. That doesn't mean you have to do that, but it means you can do that. And
Mm.
I think it's going to be a powerful event when this happens. And I'm super excited about
Love
seeing
it.
how this one goes. And, as a coach, you get to live vicariously through the
Oh,
clients.
absolutely. Yeah.
And,
Absolutely.
I have my own journey and my own bike ride and my own coach, but I also have the clients who help me be a better coach and a
Yeah.
better athlete,
That's
so
exactly what it is, and it sort of bookends. It's a nice bookend for you on either side. Like you're getting that support, but you're also giving that support, and you're in the middle of that. So
yeah.
it's a nice process to be a part of.
And you have to have both because it'll eat you alive if you don't do your own thing.
Yeah,
If you
yeah,
just
no,
spend your
no,
whole life on somebody
absolutely.
else.
Absolutely. We're a basketball family, and so for many years, I coached my son and coached many of his teams, and so now to at the age of 19 to watch him coach teams and to watch him
Oh,
sort of give what
awesome.
was given to him kind of a thing. It's actually awesome to watch, and will I'll go to one of his games and I'll just watch him on the sidelines, not even paying attention to the game, right? And I'm just watching his demeanor, how he communicates with his players, his body language, all of those things, and it's right on point, and so it's nice to be able to see.
That's an awesome story.
Thank you. True, I love it. I love it. I hear you talk about pivot as opposed to quitting. How or maybe why did you sort of take this approach?
Let me think this through. So I read a book a while ago by a woman named Annie Duke called Quit.
Okay.
You may remember her. She was long time on the World Poker Tour and
Mm-hmm.
spent, I think, close to 20 years as a professional poker player, and has a PhD in something that I don't recall, but basically, statistical psychology or some crazy thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And she wrote this book called Quit. And the book is basically story after story after story of what happens when people quit at the right time or quit at the wrong time. And I read this book, I've read it twice now. It really allowed me to look at this and say, what are the traps in chasing something that doesn't feel successful, right? Sunk cost effect, right? We all know about that. You put $10 into something, it doesn't work, so you throw 10 more dollars in. Still doesn't work. You throw another 10 in, now you're $30 into something that's not working, and you don't feel like you can quit because you've
Right.
got to put in 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 rather than lose the 30. And so sunk cost drives you into a hole where it becomes almost impossible to quit. There are endless stories that she's written on people who quit at the wrong time and quit at the right time. One of them that really strikes a chord with me is in poker. She's always, don't quit while you're ahead. Quit
Mm.
when you're losing. Keep going when you're ahead. And that's been something I really have taken to heart and and appreciate more than anything. It's like, oh, you see a little bit of success, grab that sucker and run with it. You see a lot of failure, take a left turn. I mean, I was studying Spanish, right? I was working with a lot of people in Spain and Mexico, and apparently I don't have a propensity for language. So,
Okay.
so I'm studying Spanish. My wife grew up in Argentina. She's American, but she grew up in Argentina, natively fluent. I've got the books and the headphones and an hour a day, doing these core online courses, and it was going nowhere. And, wasn't getting any real help with with my wife because she just didn't have the patience to walk down the street with me and say house, house, tree, tree. So I did this for about 6 months and I was going nowhere. And then one day I was like, you know what? My English is okay. I think I'm just going to live in English.
Okay.
And I took all of that training and all of that study and all of that opportunity and I just quit. And it was like the most joyful day to not have that monkey on my back. And, a lot of the people was working with in Spain all of a sudden turn up and they're speaking better English. So somebody else did it for me the other way.
Right.
So I think being able to look at the reality of going down a direction that isn't working,
Hmm.
and it's 70, the history of time states that, it's a little bit exponential.
Right.
I see people who are dating at 70, right? And it's like you don't have 2 years to test somebody, you
That's
know,
true.
on a once a week date. It's like, okay, is this going to work or not? Because if it's
Right.
not, I got to go find someone who is.
True.
And it's the history of time, right? It's speeding up.
Yeah, it is, and I think too. There's a part of that where you have a really strong sense of self, and you know who you are, and so it doesn't take long to figure out like if this thing is working for me, or this person or this relationship is working for me or not. And so I think when you frame it as I'm pivoting, it's making a necessary change that suits what my needs or requirements are.
And it doesn't mean quit. Pivot. I like the word pivot because it doesn't mean quit. I'm still chasing an hour record. We haven't given that up, but I'm chasing it in a different fashion now, where I'm going after it much more scientifically, much more carefully, much more one step at a time. And if it looks like the 70 plus hour record is out of reach, well, then there's 75, there's 80, there's 85. I knew about this guy who set a record at 105,
Oh,
rode 12 miles on a track. And then just yesterday in social media, I saw that somebody else at 105 broke that record and rode 14 miles on a track. So,
wow.
I bet I can do 16 miles at 105 or whatever. So, you just chase whatever you want to chase. And, you know, always see it as a pivot, never see it as a quit. Or if you do see it as a quit, figure out the positive
Yeah.
spin on it so it doesn't drive you into a hole.
That's right. That's right. I think there's a part too where we've got to have a bit of a grace for ourselves, and maybe some self forgiveness around. Oh my gosh, I quit, and I stop beating ourselves up when there's nothing wrong with changing, nothing wrong with pivoting, there's nothing wrong with
No.
reevaluating. Again, we're only here for so much time, and so why waste that time doing things that that's not going to work? And so,
Yeah,
I
we always hear that, one door closes and 15 windows fly open. But
sure.
that meme is useless if you're not willing to say yes to one of those things looking out the window. I mean, you have to be able to say, okay, I'll try that one.
Sure, sure. And that's what again the podcast being audacious is all about. Let me try, right? Let's
Yeah,
let's give that a shot. Let's see what's
just say
happening.
yes. Just say yes.
And so speaking of trying, you've had a few different careers, a scuba diver and movie maker and a few things that you had mentioned that you do, and now you're a coach. Is there kind of like a red thread that kind of goes through all these different things that you've done, that you've learned, that you take with you, or has got you to where you're at now?
I think a lot of it has been sort of serendipitous, but it goes back to what I just said. It's the ability to say yes to something crazy. So I had a producing partner when I was making commercials and movies who said, I spent, 15 years trying to get into the film industry and then 15 years trying to get out. And it's a tough road, right? I was a cinematographer and on movies and a director cameraman on commercials. And of course, that's a position of which there's only one person on set doing it. So it's not like there are 8 grips and 8 electricians and
Right,
it's easy to
right.
find a job. So my full-time job back then was looking for work and my part-time job was working. So I did it for about 30 or 35 years, pretty successfully. I shot and directed like 1,000 TV commercials,
Well,
made a bunch of really good, successful movies, won a bunch of awards, blah, blah, whatever it is, doesn't matter. And then in the trying to get out part, somebody came up to me and said, I'm thinking about starting a scuba certification agency. And I'd always had an education component within the film industry, teaching workshops, mentoring directors on visual storytelling and stuff like that. So it's like, well, I'll help. And that was 2008. And at the end of 2008, we opened Unified Team Diving as a global scuba certification and training agency. I ran it with that guy for 10 years, bought him out, ran it, owned it solely for 8 more years with a new team, and just made an exit on that just, maybe 6 months ago, passed it
mm,
on to the other 2 team members, the other 2 partners, and took a nice exit out of it so I could really focus on the work I'm doing with the Parkinson's community and focus on the
gotcha.
bike. It was just something that wasn't feeding me any longer.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So it's been sort of, I mean, it looks like a lot, right? Because, I've done all these cool things along the way. I I learned to fly and I became a flight instructor. And of course, then I became a scuba instructor. But really, it's just been these really 2 long careers, filmmaking and scuba. And now this really fun way to keep working, um, doing the content and the
Yeah,
fun education stuff for the Parkinson's community
I love it.
and riding my bike and coaching athletes. It's cool.
And authoring books too.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of that.
I
That was
bet.
mostly in the world of scuba. Although I have a book in progress, but everybody does. So we'll see when it's done.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Joe, that's great. I'm just curious for listeners if there's kind of just, I don't know, if listeners could take, maybe one mindset shift from the work, your work and our conversation today, that perhaps could transform their lives. What would you identify that as being?
I'd say treat quit as a positive. Look at what's not working, look at what's a struggle, look at what's not serving you, look at what's driving you crazy, and just find a way to exit that. And if it's an income stream, okay, that can be hard, but that horrible thing that people say, which is, if you do something you love, the money will follow. It turns out to be true, but sometimes it's hard to get to that point. So I'm a proponent for quitting, and whatever you want to label that, quit,
Sure.
pivot, change,
Yep.
exit, doesn't matter. But, take that leap and trust that there's something to do with it, but don't lose your house, right? Do it with a safety net.
Got you. I just realized I never asked you what was the record that you set for yourself, your personal best.
So on this long ultra,
Yeah.
I did about 20 miles an hour on the track for 6 hours.
Wow.
So in the course of that, I set a new 100-kilometer record, um, which I beat by like, I think 38 minutes, the old record.
Wow.
It was about 3 hours. And then 100 miles was about 5 hours. That was a new record. I set that. The 200-kilometer ride, the record, which was 124 miles, I took 2 hours off that record. And then the 6 hour, I added close to 20 miles to that record. So it was a hard but pretty successful day.
It's funny. I'll share my biking story real quickly with you here. I had it's great. As a kid, I never learned how to ride a bike. Just didn't, and no real reason. I had siblings that could ride, and friends that could ride. I lived in an area that wouldn't, and I just didn't. And you get to a stage in your life where you go, I don't need to do that no more. I'm too old for it. Or here, I'm telling you, right? I'm too old for bike riding, right? and that was but that was kind of the thing. You think, these things, these limiting beliefs that you tell yourself, and then it just became, it became from a belief to, I just don't do that. That's not what I do, kind of a thing. And so you just don't. And I was probably like 40 when I got on the bike for the first time, and I was like, oh, let's give this thing a shot. Let's try. Let's go through that window, so to speak, right? And so I did that, and it instantly, like literally took me back to when I was a kid, and I found I was like riding in like the old area I grew up in, and the parks I used to walk in, the laneways and the back roads I used to walk. I'm not cycling as a grown man going crazy. Like it was just I was maniacal. I was like, this is wild. And it had gotten to the point where I was constantly riding, and I probably want to say literally, I think it was maybe like 2.5 months where I didn't drive. I rode everywhere I went. And it was a thrill. I'm here in Toronto, so I was all over the city from one end to the next. And it wasn't enough. Like I wanted more. So I decided I was going to ride to Niagara Falls, which is about just over 100 kilometers from me. And I did the ride. It took about 7 hours. Now, this I hear when you say 5 hours, like wow, that's like that took 7. But I mean, part of it wasn't. I was by myself. It was very leisurely. There were times I'd jump off my bike and smell the roses or talk to people randomly or whatever. But I still, I did the ride nonetheless. And I remember just kind of getting the other side, going, wow, this is a very, very cool experience. And I remember even to this day, I think about the whole idea of like, I spent all these years telling myself something I couldn't do when I very well could have done it. I just wasted the time not doing it. Which is an incredible lesson for me. And I'll probably, as you said, everyone's writing a book. I'm putting that in my book too, right? Because it's an important lesson. But yeah, that was my story.
I would say, first of all, it's a great story. I would say that time was not wasted not doing it, because you did all the other things that made you today, right?
Yeah, you're
You
right.
got a kid who's coaching, you got all this other stuff going on. So was it a waste? No way.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. I'll take it back. It wasn't a waste. Thank you. Thank you. No, but nonetheless, yeah, it certainly is important. Certainly was an important period in my life in terms of my own personal growth and understanding of self. And then it becomes, it's become a story I've shared with others in the past. Go, oh, wow, that's cool. Let me, but yeah, it was, in fact, I'll never, I remember meeting a gentleman. And again, when you get on some of these trails, just incredible people. And there was a gentleman who I think he was walking and I was riding by him, and I think he said hello, and that's all. I mean, that's all you need to say hi to me, and I'll stop. So I jumped off the bike and we started talking to this guy, and he was just a fascinating conversation as he described sort of the stage he was at life. He got married at an advanced age. He and his wife had brought her parents to live with them. They were elderly and they were caring for them. And he was sort of talking about being at this stage of life and what it meant. And he talked a lot about slowing down and appreciating the moments. And so that's why he goes through these walks, right? Because it was just so therapeutic for him, and it really helped him to put things in perspective. And so those are sorts of things that I walk away with after I look at that adventure, because it was really, it was really impactful for me during that period.
Yeah, no, it's cool. And those are the moments that, inform other moments, right? You can go back to those times and recapture what that feeling is.
Yes.
And apply that to anything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's cool.
very cool. Listen, Jeff, this has been super, super awesome. I really appreciate the insights. For listeners that want to connect with you directly, where can we send them?
Yeah, it's easy. JeffScoaching.com. JeffScoaching.com.
Cool. We will make sure that we put those contact details in the show notes below. Like I said, Jeff, this has been awesome. Congratulations on certainly the records and all the work that you're doing, but particularly how you're helping how you're coaching your clients and helping them recognize their own individual greatness and showing what the possibilities are. I think one, and I sort of alluded to at the beginning how we'll have this conversation will inspire people. I think one of the most wonderful things we can do is inspire individuals just by being ourselves, right? Undoubtedly, there's someone that's heard about your story or heard about the records that you broke, and they said, he's how old? And it inspired them to, I can, and I think that's a wonderful thing to be able to do. And so congratulations for that. And I really appreciate the time.
Oh, I'm grateful to be here. It's great to be on your show.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for being a guest on the Audacious Living Podcast. This is awesome.
All right. Thanks, Auden.
Back we are here on the podcast. I got to tell you, one of the biggest takeaways from the conversation with Jeff was this. Audacity doesn't fade with age. It deepens when you give it direction. Jeff reminded us that aging isn't the problem. The real challenge is accepting limits that were never ours to begin with. Whether he's breaking records, coaching clients with Parkinson's, or helping people shift from exercise to training, Jeff shows us that identity drives action, and action sustains life. I got to tell you, what I love most about this conversation is how practical and empowering it is. You don't need to chase records to live audaciously. Sometimes audacity looks like reframing who you are, pivoting from when something no longer serves you, and committing to the rest of your life with intention. If this conversation resonated with you, I encourage you to connect with Jeff and learn more about his coaching work. And you'll find, of course, his contact information. We got you. They're in the show notes below. As a final reflection, think about this. Life isn't about asking you to stop, slow down, or settle. It's inviting you to pivot, to choose purpose, and to keep showing up powerfully right where you are. My mother, 83 years old, once told me her best days are in front of her, and that's called living powerful, and she certainly is. Very audacious of her, I gotta tell you. Now, if this episode added value to you, please like, follow, subscribe, and share, leave a review. Of course, every act of engagement helps this message reach someone who needs it, and your audacious growth helps us all growing together. So with all that said, I want to thank you for being here. Until next time, keep living life audaciously.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion. My words got power, my thoughts have action. Motivation, stay gracious. That's greatness. Be audacious.